going to restart the video here, but you're probably going to see the other clips because just like normal, my E36 has fought me every step of the way. I'm really looking forward to having this car finished and ready for the spring because I have had this car over a year and a half at this point, and I personally have not driven it. That upsets me. Sam Khalazy, live and in color. He has also come to join us and do car things. I guess we can get this together until, where's our flywheel? This was supposed to come with a flywheel. Here's my order sheet. So there's the part number here. And you look at what I ordered here. Same part number. Includes flywheel. It'll be this same video. We'll check back in. Rock Auto done me dirty, boys and girls. And my Chase Bays tucked rad, electric fan, and all the hoses and couplers came in yesterday. I ordered that back in July. It came in on December 3rd. I literally got the Sachs clutch kit off of the FedEx truck like 30 minutes ago. This one, they actually sent me the flywheel. Our homie Alex got me another GetDrag 5-speed, so I'm gonna change the fluid in the GetDrag, throw it back in the car. I'm not sponsored by Valvoline, but if y'all wanna hit me up, send me some stuff, I would not be disappointed. So because this has fought me every step of the way, I'm going to throw on some music and just try to get some work done, and I will update you guys when I get to a point that's worthy of being filmed. In the BMW world, they call this the bitch clip, and it's supposed to snap down over a thing here, but it's such a pain in the ass to remove that I took a die grinder and ground that down, so it gives us easy access to it because you can't really see it when you have to remove it in the car. And on the new trans that I got, it is not ground down, so the first thing I'm going to do is take my handy dandy little air grinder here and grind that hump off of the inside of here. Is that recommended? I'm not sure. Was this car $350? Yes. Was the transmission $50? Yes. Do I really care if it's recommended or not? Not at all. It makes life so much simpler when you have to take this car back apart. Ended up calling in the big dog, the M18, ground that inside wall down, goes in, goes down, good enough for the girls I go out with. Next, I'm going to take this dirty old skillet and drain the dirty old trans fluid out of this, if there's even any fluid in it. Not really sure. That's gonna be a negative, Ghost Rider. That's all the fluid that was in there. This is the vent, so I'm willing to bet that was a little bit of fluid that was left over in it. But that's okay, because I have 2 quarts of Valvoline ATF. Here's where you pour that in. It takes 1.2 quarts, and everybody thinking, Bailey, this is a manual transmission. Why are you using ATF? I don't know, the forums told me to, and if you don't believe me, right there it says ATF, so we're just gonna roll with it. I put a little over 1.2 in there. You should be able to flip this 90 degrees, and any extra will drain out, but I'm just gonna send the plug home, and we'll deal with it later. Little extra is not gonna kill anything, but it's better than the amount that it had in it when I got it. The only other thing I'm going to do to the transmission, if you remove this spring here, that is what holds on this shift fork. And the slave cylinder comes in the back side of the trans. When you press the pedal, it moves this, and it pivots on a pivot ball underneath this. So if you take this spring off, just kind of spread it apart, move it out of the way. It's hard to do one-handed. Move it out of the way. You can pull the shift fork off. Now the bottom part of that spring goes around this little plastic ball. I say plastic because they are plastic from factory. I'm not going to currently go on a rant about BMW and their fetish of making parts out of plastic, but just know I'm replacing it with this brass one. Not going to try to do it one-handed, but I need to get that spring off of the plastic one, and I think I should be able to pull that out of there with just a screwdriver. So this is what that retaining spring looks like. The bottom loop of the spring goes in the groove that you see here on the pivot ball. So the solution to that was just grab it with vice grips and pull straight up while you twist, and it will come out of there eventually. So now I seat that in there, and I'm just gonna take a mallet handle, tap it a couple times, seat it down in there. Going to put the spring back on and around that lower groove, and then I will add the shift fork back in. So now that all that is reassembled, the only thing left to do is add the throwout bearing, and now I will move on to putting the flywheel and the clutch assembly on the M50. Flywheel is assembled. The torque specs on those bolts are 77 foot-pounds, plus or minus 5 pounds. Yeah, it tries to spin, so close enough is close enough. So now I'm going to add the clutch disc. This one, if you can see right above the hub, it says gearbox side. This is going to save us so much frustration because the other one wasn't labeled. And I never did this before, so it ended up in backwards. I'm not scared to admit to the whole internet that I am kind of an idiot. The kit comes with this plastic alignment tool, so you have a way to align the clutch splines to the hole that the shaft from the transmission goes into, because now you put the pressure plate on and torque that. So this is the flywheel assembled with the pressure plate and the clutch disc in there. I still have the clutch alignment tool in there because I need to torque these pressure plate bolts. Those bolts are to be torqued between 22 and 26 foot-pounds. I actually had to go buy a smaller torque wrench for that. Now that everything is torqued and ready to go, I am ready to add the transmission back to the mix, and we will commence assembly. Zach sent this grease with, so I am going to put that on the transmission shaft. I'll pull that alignment tool out of there, and that's how we're going to lubricate between the transmission and the clutch. That's the first time I've put the transmission back on the engine by myself, and I must say it went a lot easier than I expected it to. Everything's bolted up. I did actually get the dust cover. That's the hardest part. I gotta put the starter on here yet, but the hardest part is getting the dust cover aligned as one person. So next I'm going to add the starter on the back side of the transmission, and then I'm going to add the new guibo to this side because the old guibo was clapped. I got the starter and the guibo on. I took a quick pizza break, and I think the only thing that I'm going to do yet before it goes back into the car is put the rear of the two headers on. It's easier to do that outside of the car just because there's so many bolts and nuts, and it's kind of tight once you get into the engine bay. And I think I can get away with doing the rear of the two and still get the engine into the car. Gonna try it. If not, I'm just gonna have to pull it off again. So who knows? Maybe I'll save myself some frustration. Maybe I'll make more for myself. The rear header is on. I also transferred the shift linkage from the old transmission, so that's on, and now I'm going to attempt to put this back in the car by myself. I got it to here by myself. Reckless Ron is going to come out and push the hoist for me.
Psych, alive.
Because I need to be able to maneuver the engine, because I have to get the oil pan behind the steering rack, and it's easier to do that with two people because you kind of have to push the engine that way. So it's rather tight against the strut tower. Then you can kind of drop it all back in around the steering shaft. I figured out how to get it there myself. Now I need to throw the engine mount arm back on this side while it's in here, and I'll be able to tighten that up, put the ground back on, and all I really have to do is connect the drive shaft and the shifter linkage and everything, throw the other header on, and then connect the exhaust, do all the harness and all that, and we'll be good to go. There's not much to show you underneath the car, but I did get the engine seated where it needs to be. I have the shifter linkage all hooked up, the bitch clip is hooked up. Everything is hooked up under the car, minus the drive shaft and the exhaust. I'm gonna brag for a couple seconds real quick, because I'm actually very proud of myself for doing all of that by myself. Getting the bitch clip and the shifter linkage together, you have to have a jack underneath the back of the transmission. So I'm laying under the car, jacking up the transmission, getting everything lined up. This is the first and only time that I have done this entire reassembly process by myself. So I'm pretty impressed. Glad to know that I can do it. Last night I finished up the drive shaft and the exhaust, put the car back on the ground, so now I'm going to go ahead, throw the intake manifold on, and get the harness and the fuel rail and everything else sorted. The clutch pedal still feels a little limp, so I might try to reverse bleed it from the bottom, and then I should be able to get it out of the garage. I have everything reassembled minus the cooling system and the front clip, but if I come over here, my pedal is still kind of spongy. See how it doesn't really return as fast as it could? When I press the pedal, it's not leaking fluid from anywhere. I have a brand new master cylinder, brand new slave cylinder. All of the lines are brand new. The clutch is also brand new. So I think there's air in the system somewhere. Everyone has told me this system is a pain in the ass to bleed. Sometimes you can get a little air bubble above the bleeder and it doesn't want to come out. I sucked some fluid out of there, tried to reverse bleed it, seemed to be okay. Reckless Ron pumped the clutch for me. Reckless Ron said, well, I got a little bit of pressure, but why don't you put the lid on the reservoir? Which, in all honesty, makes sense, but we never tried that. So I might have just spent like $400 to $600 to fix what was a free issue, but I have clutch pressure, so now I have the battery tender on the car trying to charge the battery so I can start it. Look at that. It actually comes back on its own for the first time since we picked it up. I know it's ready to jump because the four-ways are on, and Max showed up, so thanks, Mrs. Deppen. You guys saw, it did leave the garage. It runs, it drives. Max came to jump start it, and I made Max drive it because, again, no shame in admitting it. I'm terrible at driving stick. My truck is stick. My truck is also diesel, so it doesn't really give a shit. That's where I'm gonna end this video. We will do another video when I put the cooling system on because I do need to fab some brackets for that. If you wanna follow along on social media, at Horsepower Pizza on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you follow TikTok, you will see things long before you ever see them here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to support, head over to horsepowerandpizza.com. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out. Build it for you.